I don't need that, right? I think I'm probably okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Ann Raridan with Sustainable Blacksburg. We're a nonprofit community organization dedicated to environmental stewardship. And this program is part of a partnership that we do with the Blacksburg Library. Next month's talk will be on conserving Virginia's extraordinary invertebrate heritage with Dr. Ben Jansen. So hopefully you'll come back for that next month. One other announcement I want to make before we get started is that, kind of keeping with the zero waste theme at Steppin' Out, we will be hosting a water bottle refill station. And we have a lot of people on vacation and different things, so we really need some more volunteers to help us with that. You don't have to be there the whole time, but just check on it and refill the water, and we'll reimburse you for ice. But anyway, if you're around for Steppin' Out and you'd be willing to help with that, let us know. So with that, I want to introduce our speaker, Carol Davis, our Town Sustainability Manager, and you have no idea how much she does for our community. And she led the first Solarize program in Virginia. She coordinates our Sustainability Through the Seasons group, which used to be the Sustainability Week events. She coordinated Blacksburg Bike Festival a few years ago, and she does so much that I can't possibly remember it all. But anyway, she's also an ex officio member of our Sustainable Blacksburg board. So we coordinate with her very closely. And apologies to anybody who was expecting the drinking water talk. Circumstances beyond our control that couldn't happen, but Carol is a great speaker, and I'm sure that you all will enjoy her talk about zero waste.
Thanks, Anne. Very kind words. I so enjoy partnering with Anne and all the folks in Sustainable Blacksburg on the wide array. Oh, thank you. She disappeared, so I'm going to turn the volume way down on it, see if that helps. What was that? No more roaring. No more roaring. Can you still hear me okay? All right. I'm also kind of a loud person just in general, so I can turn the mic off if needed. Hi, everybody. Again, Carol Davis, Sustainable Blacksburg. Apologies again if you wanted to hear about drinking water quality and testing. Erin Ling was our featured speaker. She's fabulous. We're going to reschedule with her. If you've ever been to, she did this talk at Science on Tap a couple of years ago. I don't know if any of you saw it, but she's got this cool model that shows how contaminants flow through a watershed with like dyes, and it's meant for kids, but honestly, it's great for grown-ups, you know, for those of us who maybe don't understand how pollutants make their way into our water system. But you get me today. This is a presentation I've actually had in my back pocket, but I haven't given in a little while, so I had to do some updating to it. But the idea is, you know, moving toward, I call it zero-ish waste, because there really is no such thing as zero waste. But I'm really just going to walk you through my own journey on this. So first question, why? Why zero waste? Anybody have any thoughts?
I would like to extend the life of the planet.
Yeah, I also would love a livable planet. That's probably a shared value for many of us here. So like we get into the Wayback Machine, thinking about the world sort of pre-industrial revolution. For the most part, our waste types we were generating were either entirely biodegradable or entirely inert, right? Not things that were leaching toxins into the atmosphere. And so since the Industrial Revolution, we've really changed fundamentally everything about the way we live our lives and order our societies. So we've shifted from, and we've still retained all of these biodegradable and relatively inert waste streams, but then we've added, right, a whole bunch of non-biodegradable and varying degrees of toxic waste streams. And on top of adding those new types of waste, we've exploded our population and we've exploded our amount of waste per person. So kind of that's the rough estimates of like what we're kind of looking at as a society. So here's another question. Is zero waste realistic, right? Maybe not fully zero waste, but I'll pose another question. Is this realistic? right? The world that we are creating and leaving for future generations. It doesn't look like this everywhere, but there are parts of the world that look like this, right? In large part because of the choices that we're making with the things that we buy and dispose of. I would also say, I would assume folks in this room are familiar with the issue of microplastics. Is this something folks have heard about, right? I feel like I didn't hear anything about microplastics even 5 years ago, and it's now becoming a greater concern. And there's been, reporting in the news that they're finding it in every part of the world. They're finding it in every human tissue, no matter how remote people live. Very concerning for our health, because a lot of these microplastics are endocrine disruptors and really wreak havoc on critical systems in our bodies. And really it's just a big question mark. We don't know what it's doing to us to have, and I've heard, and I don't know, don't quote me on this, although I am being recorded, so feel free to quote me. But I've heard that we all have about the equivalent of like a credit card's worth of plastic, just like living in our body at all times. And so that's not great, maybe. So how do we tackle this problem? Maybe folks have heard the sort of debate of, what's more effective, individual action or systemic change? What do y'all think? What did I hear? Yeah, I would say there's really good, I'm going to talk a little bit about both of them, right? But yeah, I think you've stolen my punchline from myself, which I teed you up to do, which is the answer is both, right? So I think the challenge, and the reason I use this graphic, right, is that individual actions, if you think about it, require us to hit a bullseye. It's a hard thing to do, right? And the reason that it requires hitting that bullseye is that there's so much arrayed against us to hit that bullseye, right? And which makes it that the target really narrow. For the most part, I think the big issue for me is, and all of us, is that researching the best and most green options would essentially be a full-time job. We have, hundreds, if not thousands, of consumer products that we purchase and use in our lifetime and really in our day-to-day lives. And there's a lot there. There's, particularly, there's a lot of greenwashing out there. You don't know, something can be listed as natural or green. There's nothing really behind that. We definitely can't recycle our way out of this issue. I think that's been something that's been sold to us over decades as like a solution to our waste stream. But I think the other factors are we're constantly being advertised to, right? That we need to buy more and new and better and not to be satisfied with what we have that's workable or perfectly good. And then, of course, disposability and planned obsolescence are a feature, not a bug, and they're really part of the economic model that we've built for ourselves. But I'll kind of pivot back to recycling and kind of what's a real challenge there. So one thing, recycling is super complicated, right? Does anybody ever feel confused about what you can recycle and all of that? So I have these two, same beer, right? And there's recycling glass. There's not really a great secondary market for glass. So people might get these two different beers and think, I'll just toss them in the recycling bin. Whereas aluminum has much more of a direct glide path to being recycled, not just once, but many times over and over again. It's it's the gold standard of things that can be recycled well and affordably. Whereas glass it doesn't make economic sense really to recycle glass, and many localities still accepts it, but many localities don't accept glass at all. The other thing is recycling, quite frankly, is deliberately misleading. Back in the early 70s, environmentalists were pushing for recycling and reusing and recycling and created this ubiquitous and well-known recycling symbol. And they were starting to hold producers accountable, right? The packaging industry in particular, that they needed to be responsible for the packaging streams that they were creating. And instead of being held responsible, what they did is they co-opted the symbol. They took it right away from the environmental activists and used it to stamp their resin identification codes, giving people the false impression that a whole bunch of stuff is recyclable that just isn't, right? So that's not amazing. And so people, you know, justifiably are at the store and they pick up something and they turn it over and they see those chasing arrows and they're like, great, I can recycle this. So they can't. And in fact, they're contaminating the waste stream, and it's not their fault, right? They are deliberately being misled. And it was evidenced by this article that I found in the Washington Post a while back, is that you're not recycling right, and it's not your fault, right? And it kind of went into all of the issues behind that. The other issue with recycling is it is generally not an infinite loop. Things like paper can be recycled, you know, 1 or 2 times at most. Plastic, if it's recycled, which is rare, like less than 9% of plastic ever gets recycled, it can only be recycled once. And it's really more like downcycled into a secondary product, right? Which is great. That's wonderful, but it's not an infinite loop. Things like aluminum, like I said, can, but it's, yeah. So where does that put us as individuals? It puts all the responsibility on us. We're up against all of these issues and really that are dictated by the laws we have and the corporate policies that we live under. And so we're just pushing a boulder uphill to sort of stem the tide. And unfortunately, I forgot this. Oh, sorry, I can't cross my arms or let me see if is that okay? All right, so I just saw this the other day and I wanted to read this to you. I saw it somewhere on social media, and it was titled "The Story of Everything." And I'm going to scroll down here. Hopefully I can do this without being too awkward, but this is a story that somebody had posted about these 2 clothespins. My dad handed me 2 clothespins. This, he said, is the story of everything. In one hand, a clothespin from the 1960s, solid, dense hardwood, likely maple or beech, warm to the touch, smooth by time and use. It still works perfectly, some 60 years later. In the other, a clothespin from 2025, lighter, paler wood, maybe pine or poplar. It feels brittle. The spring is thinner, less stable. It was marketed online as extra durable. My dad raised an eyebrow. At first glance, it's just 2 clothespins, but in truth, it's a snapshot of an entire economic philosophy, the shift from durability to disposability, from stewardship to consumption, from craftsmanship to cost cutting. Let me see if I can scroll down. This is planned obsolescence in action. We don't often think about how products are intentionally designed to fail, that a company might choose materials not for longevity, but for built-in expiration. Why? Because a product that lasts is a product that doesn't need to be bought again. And if it doesn't need to be bought again, it doesn't generate continuous profit. So to keep the wheels of commerce turning, products must break slowly, subtly, a frayed wire here, a cracked hinge there, just enough to send us back to the store again and again, not because we want more, but because what we have was never built to last. It might seem like a clever business strategy, but the costs are everywhere. We see it in our landfills overflowing with the remnants of yesterday's purchases. We feel it in our wallets, spending more over time to replace what shouldn't need replacing. And perhaps most invisibly, we feel it in our spirits, growing accustomed to the idea that nothing is meant to endure, not even the things we once cherished. So I just wanted to share that because I think this is emblematic of how people shouldn't really feel bad that they aren't able to like overcome everything here. And so I think I've maybe made a strong case for why individual action is really hard and you're up against a lot. And now I'm going to pivot hard back to what you can do on the individual level. So it's like, given all of that, right? Given all of that reality, why even try? And I do it personally. I think it feels great to be part of a solution, not a problem. It also feels great to sort of stick it to the man who's throwing everything at me to keep me just consuming. I know I'm happier and healthier, right? I eat more of a plant-based diet, more whole foods. I'm also not wasting a bunch of money on stuff I don't need. I also really appreciate this approach to life because it doesn't matter if I do it, but if a bunch of people do it, we can demonstrate a market demand and build a constituency for that systemic change we want to see. So What does it mean? Where should I start if I want to work toward zero or zero-ish waste? So I think the first thing you need to do, or I did, was challenge my mindset. Instead of the kind of get what you want, recycle what you can approach, I think there are 4 different values that you can use to guide you going forward. First is look for things that are timeless versus trendy. And who recognizes this item over here in the corner? What is it? Tinker Toys here. Yes. What's over here? Fidget spinner. Okay, I just looked it up yesterday. When I first started making this slide deck, it's been a minute. It was at the height of the fidget spinner craze, which was 2018, right? That like they were just everywhere. Every kid and some grown-ups had these things. When was the last time you saw a fidget spinner? Where are they all now? They're all in the landfill, right? There's not I don't even think you could find one at a thrift store. And there were jillions of them everywhere, right? You couldn't turn around without seeing one or hearing that, right? So think about that. I was like, I should update this to a new currently trendy thing. And I was like, no, it's actually a better point to think about this thing that was ubiquitous and now is nowhere. The other value is to think about prioritizing durable over disposable. I think this one's fairly obvious. The cast iron skillet that was your great-great-grandma's. I mean, you could still fry an egg and bash an intruder over the head with it. Works just fine. Can't do that with an aluminum tray. The other value I think is, when you're researching something, particularly for a larger purchase, research for lower impact versus low cost. Often, especially like if you think about like a big item like an appliance or furniture, that low cost item might not even last 5 years versus the lower impact and more durable one. And then this last one I think maybe is not as common in Western American culture is think about whether or not you need access to something or you need ownership of that. If it's something you're using daily or weekly, yeah, sure, maybe ownership or monthly. If it's something like waffle iron, which I maybe use every 5 years, I need access to a waffle iron. I have a friend who has a waffle iron. I can borrow theirs anytime I want. But for all of us to own waffle irons, one, who's got the cabinet space for weird appliances that you use once a year, right? So think about access versus ownership as a value. So the next step in my journey, and I would recommend for you, is face your waste, right? The vast majority of what ends up in a landfill is food and food packaging. So I kind of showed these different sizes of trash cans as an example. There's a reason why the biggest trash can in our house is our kitchen trash can for the most part. Whereas our office and bathroom trash cans are a lower waste volume profile. So, and when I say face your waste, I mean, get in there, dig in, figure out what are your primary categories of things. Is it packaging? Is it single-use convenience items? Is it just stuff that's busted? Is it like yucky stuff like food waste or dog poop? Or is it scary stuff like, that might have some toxins in it that maybe shouldn't be thrown out in the trash? So I did this. I unpacked a whole trash can and put things into categories. And so these were my categories, right? And I've got labels on another slide, but essentially, beauty supplies or, hygiene supplies. I loved for some reason at the time that I started these like carton egg whites. I was very into these for a while. And then produce that was packaged in some way, like these clamshells and stuff like that. And then frozen food in plastic bags and dairy products in these cartons. So these were kind of my big categories generally. But also as you're doing that, and at the time I was composting, so I really didn't have any food waste in mind, but food waste is the single largest component that winds up in the landfill. So if you have a way to compost or a way to partner with someone to compost, if you don't have that's an incredible way forward. So again, here are my categories in the categories, like the stuff in the number 5 tubs, the toiletries, staples in bags or cardboard boxes. I really, for a time, was very obsessed with these spicy olives at the antipasto bar at Kroger. So my journey was essentially to figure out what among those categories could I replace, reduce, or avoid altogether. And so where I started is, and this is actually how my brain thinks. I wanted to look at things where I had lots of choices and it were relatively easy, starting in that upper quadrant. And so what I found was where I had lots of options and it was easy to do a swap was bulk dry goods or staples, shopping bags, and things that are like single-use items like straws, utensils, and disposable drink containers that you would get out in the wild. And then next, I had somewhat fewer choices, but were also easy swaps, or things like swapping out packaged produce for what I call naked produce. So things that aren't bagged or otherwise packaged anyway. Drinks, I just pivoted entirely to using reusable bottle and just for the most part drinking water. Cleaning supplies, there's lots of zero waste or low waste options there. Personal grooming, and then I did give up my cartoned egg whites and went for, eggs. The other one where there are lots of choices, but it's a little bit harder, is swapping out convenience foods for real foods, essentially cooking with ingredients to make meals rather than something that comes in a bag or a box. And then where it gets really hard, I mean, to be honest, it's very hard to swap these things out. Cheese, meat, and electronics, you can just sort of choose lower impact options, but zero waste is really hard to make happen on those fronts. So now let's just take a tour of how I did. We're going to start with this dairy products in cartons. So when I first started off, I swapped it out for, Homestead Creamery. They have and still have the at Kroger, the bottles, you can return them and they can be reused, from what I understand, hundreds of times before they reach the end of their useful life. This is the way, yes, ma'am. It's 3. Oh, see, I need to update my slide. Thank you, Rosemary. Yeah.
But you get that back.
Yeah. You get the deposit back. Who's old enough to remember bottle deposits? Okay, a couple of hands in the room. Yeah, going back to the 70s with that first recycling symbol, environmentalists were pushing hard for it to become a national policy that glass bottles could have, a return. What is it called? Like, I can't think of it, but essentially it used to be like a nickel or a dime back when you would return a bottle, and the packaging industry killed that basically and eliminated that as a policy. And I think the only states that hung on might have been Vermont and Oregon still have bottle return policies. Yeah.
And so there was no deposit.
Because the milkman just came and. Yep, I don't recall that, but I was an exchange student in England, and they had a milk, and I was just utterly charmed. Like, how fantastic! So I was doing Homestead for a while, but I live alone, and I could never get through the whole thing before it would kind of turn on me. And so I was like, I don't know. This feels very zero waste. I'm getting like a third of the way through this, and then I've got to dump it out because it's gone sour on me. Oh, good point. Or this option, which is my other solution, is I actually went back to a carton, but went with oat milk. And so this is an example of where it has the same packaging impact, but a far lower climate impact. And then we've got the stats here on greenhouse gas emissions, land use, and water use of these different types of milks, right? And so to me, I tried the soy milk, wasn't a fan, and I tried oat milk, and I liked that the most. And so I've made that switch for a different environmental reason. So that's not really a zero waste option. I'm kind of back to where I was. The other thing, I've already talked about this, to the greatest degree possible, try to select fruits and veggies that aren't packaged in anything. This is a great opportunity to visit our farmers market or some of our local farms and CSAs. No need to use plastic produce bags. Nothing makes me more frustrated to see people throw in avocados and oranges in a produce bag. I'm like, what are you doing? You're not going to eat that, and of course, folks probably have seen these little produce bags for like smaller items like green beans. So this picture is a typical waste profile for me for a week's worth of fruits and veggies. It's even less if I get my veggies from the farmers market, because they don't come with these little stickers and twist ties on them. But yeah, that's what was from that, right? And that's the veggies I would usually eat in a week. The other thing, does anybody here go get bulk items, bulk food from like Eats or Annie K's? Those are the two that I'm aware of in town. Just couldn't be easier, right? You can either bring your own, or often they have clean containers that people have donated there, and they have a tear on them, which is just the weight of the container. You fill it up, you put a code on it, you just check out. It just couldn't be easier. And I brought this as a show and tell because I have mine, like it says chickpeas and the PLU, which is the code for that. And when this is empty, I've used up all my chickpeas, I just throw it in my shopping bag, and then it's like a shopping list, right? And so I just take it, I'm like, oh, I'm out of chickpeas. Let me fill this back up again. It's very, very easy. Okay, so remember those olives, those spicy olives that I was like super obsessed with for a while? I couldn't give them up because they were in number 5 tubs. So then I went and asked the manager of Kroger. I was like, if I bring my own clean tub, can I fill it up? And he was like, absolutely not. And I said, okay, cool. Sorry. And I just did it anyway. And he didn't catch me. And nobody's ever confronted me about it ever. So, I mean, I'm also being recorded doing this, but it's, I'm not telling you to break the law, but it works. The other thing is some things I just entirely stopped buying, right? Things that are number 5 tubs, I couldn't recycle. And so I just, and really 3 through 7 are not recyclable, and there's not great zero waste or reduce waste options for any of these products. So I just stopped. But I do engage with the companies on their social media and say, hey, love your product. I'm not buying it until you put it in packaging that can be recycled or is low or zero waste. And not one of them has responded to me in anything that, other than feels like form letter, that's fine. But noting that corporations and governments and policymakers start to pay attention when north of 3.5% of the population consistently engages on something. And so again, it won't matter if I do it or even everybody in this room does it, but if the population as a whole says, I'm not doing this, and telling them why, it has the potential to demonstrate a market demand for change. So bummer though, I gave up my my cottage cheese, which I really loved. So found out it's really easy to make cottage cheese. I got a used Instant Pot, which is also my zero waste, secret weapon for everything. Not just this, but it's super easy to make your own cottage cheese and yogurt in an Instant Pot. Happy to share that recipe with anybody who's interested. And that's a zero waste way to get around having these things in number 5 tubs. I really want to learn how to make feta. Brenda Springer, who's on our board, has offered many times, and I need to take her up on it because she said it's super easy to make feta. So yeah, I want to learn how to start making cheese because that would be an incredible update to my life. Okay, great. So at this point, through different swaps, I have either eliminated or swapped 5 of the 10 things from my initial list. So then let's take a look at the sort of, what was the category here of like, personal grooming items. So shampoo and conditioner, can't live with dirty hair. I tried a shampoo bar. I don't remember where I got it. I really hated it. It made my hair feel gross. And so I ended up going with like a somewhat less impactful, just getting bulk shampoo and conditioner in gallon bottles. But I kept looking because I thought, I don't think this is a great solution. So I tried, and I'm not here to buzz market any particular brands, but I will say I went through a lot of options, and I found 2 that I really liked that make my hair feel really clean. So there's Humby brand, and they're fantastic. And then the other one that I really like is Dip, and that's shown here. And they have a shampoo and conditioner bar with this great little handy dandy like shower thing, so it doesn't become a soppy mess. And yeah, here's kind of a picture of my like happy bathroom grooming. So I've got my Dip shampoo and conditioner. I've got my cotton face rounds. I've got my toothpaste tablets, which I love. Those are unpaste brand. You can't see because it's out of focus. And my recycled toilet paper. So all zero or very low waste. So really I'm currently using the Dip shampoo, and I think, you guys, it looks amazing. Okay, so now we're to items that are in just sort of plastic, freezer bags or cheese or things in these containers. And where I ended up landing is there isn't a good zero waste option. So my solution was to just eat less of them. So I've kind of cut my consumption of those things by about 2/3. And I switched again from the egg whites in the carton to just eggs, which I get from a local farmer. So I even return the containers to him and get them refilled. And I think this is the last item on my list. At the time, he's since passed away. I had a really sweet older dog who apparently wanted to poop every day, or several times a day. And I just hated sending dog poop to the landfill. So I tried the compostable dog poop bags. Do not recommend those for reasons I won't explain in detail. Not as durable as they need to be for that job. So I kind of went back to square one. I was like, all right, I'm just going to use regular old plastic, but I kept looking. And then where did I go? Yeah. So then actually the solution was kind of in front of me. I don't actually eat a ton of bread, but I had neighbors who had tons of these. I just started using bread bags to pick up poop. And then I took it one step further and I talked to the town stormwater engineer and I was like, is there any reason I can't put dog poop in the toilet? And she's like, no, you can do that. She said, don't put cat poop in the toilet. That's bad, bad. Cat poop in the toilet, because they apparently carry pathogens that the wastewater treatment plant can't contend with, and it's a public health problem, but dog poop is fine for some reason. And so, yeah, I just started to flush dog poop and not put it in the landfill. And not to be super gross, but I don't eat 14 loaves of bread a week. So I started reusing the bags, right? So I would pick it up. This is TMI. And they just go and like put it in the toilet and then turn it this way and hang it up on a little clip on my porch. And I would just use it like dozens and dozens of times before I would throw it away. So over the course of about 2 years, I was able to eliminate 7 of my 10 items, swapped out 1 for a lower impact option, and significantly reduced the remaining 2. So let's just take a look. I did start tracking my progress when I started. And boy, when I started this, I had been, in this job for 5 years and had always sort of lived what I thought was a really kind of like, yay, environmentally friendly life. And I'm like, I can't really improve on this, right? I'm already averaging about 50 days per kitchen trash can, a standard 13-gallon size one. So I started to just, measure my intervals. So the first time I did it, 49 days. Then the next interval over between 28, 20 and 29, I went up 63, 73, 99 days, right? And I was like, okay, I'm loving this trend line as I'm making swaps. Then I started to track my recycling too, because I thought, well, I don't want to just shift everything to increasing my recycling stream. I want to also kind of make improvements on that front too, because as we said, recycling is complicated and not all of it actually is infinitely recyclable. But at the same time, I was further improving my stats on my trash. So I got up to 129 days by early 2020. Anybody remember early 2020? Okay, something happened in there. So I sort of drew a blue line because when COVID hit, everything the single-use packaging just went through the roof, right? And it kind of you just kind of couldn't avoid it for a while. And also my daughter, who was at college at the time, all of her classes pivoted to online. So she moved back in with me. She's like, I'm not paying for an apartment when I'm just taking all my classes. So she moved back. So I went from a 1-person to a 2-person household. So we backslid all the way back to 68 days on a trash can, but I trained her up while she was living with me. So by the end of 2020, we were back to, 120 days. And then I kept working on it. Like I'm always looking for improvements, right? So between the fall and the spring of 2024, I got down to a bag of garbage every 5 months. And recycling every 4 months, but
Giant size.
no, a 13-gallon bag, like a normal kitchen sized trash can. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, the normal, but the bigger trash.
Yeah, the trash can that's like yay big.
My kitchen trash. Small.
Oh yeah, not like this size, like a normal size. I was thinking, I don't know what normal is, but I think like the sort of standard hip height. Yeah. So then, but you know, we're in summer of 2025. So these are my stats back then. This is what I updated on the slide deck. So don't ask me a lot of hard questions about why these numbers have gotten so much better, because I don't know what I've swapped out, but now I'm at a bag of garbage every 7.5 months since 2024, whereas my recycling profile has stayed the same. And I mean, I'm feeling really good about my goal was to have 2 bags of trash a year, and now I've exceeded that. But again, I'm still open to other opportunities. For me, it's like, it's become a game, right? Like, what can I eliminate? And I think maybe this will give you a giggle. My kids find this hysterical, right? It's always fun to be an embarrassing parent, a weird, embarrassing parent. Right? It gives them something to talk about with their friends. So my kids had this made for me, I don't know where, as a Christmas present. And so I don't actually track my garbage in it. I use it for my French lessons. So yeah, that's that. I thought you would give you a giggle, but they're like, they know, like when they come to the house, they can do anything they want. Just don't add to the waste profile because they mess up my stats. So it's kind of like a leave no trace house when you come. Oh yeah. Yeah. So I think I'll kind of close out with that earlier question, you know, is zero waste realistic? And I think my answer is it's not realistic to get to perfect zero waste, but there is so much progress that you can make as an individual with your choices. Again, that's pretty low impact in the aggregate, but I've really enjoyed doing it and I've learned a lot along the way. And, you know, I think I like this quote. I don't know where I saw this graphic somewhere, but it's I think it's an important sentiment. We don't need a handful of people doing zero waste perfectly. We need millions of people doing it imperfectly. So there's, you know, you can like me, you can start small with the easy and lots of choices. And then if you want to continue, great. If you don't, you've made an impact nonetheless. So I do want to kind of revisit this earlier question. You know, what makes more sense, individual action or systemic change? And I think the question is, you know, what's your goal? Do you, the individual action, you have the most influence over that, but with systemic change, you have potential for the highest impact. The real answer is you can have multiple goals, right? And both are worthwhile to pursue. Here are some ways that and I've already talked about this, is the engaging producers, right? So here's me hitting up Kroger on their social media, like, you know, I love your Kroger, I love your cottage cheese, but I'm not going to buy it. And there's a reply, hey, thank you for your feedback. They don't care. But if everyone does it, they will care. Another one that I just added this week is does anybody ever heard of the Reddit or just the Buy It for Life Reddit page? Yeah, it's fantastic. And this is a great way to crowdsource information. People will either go on there and post like, hey, I've had these socks for 10 years and they look great. Or if you're buying scissors, buy scissors that you can take apart and sharpen. Or I love these boots, but they're garbage and they fall apart I think he says, I really love my boots, but they're so cheap garbage that I'm on my 3rd pair this year. Can anyone point me to a Buy It for Life substitute? Right. And so people will be like, oh, these, and these. Or sometimes people will say, this was a really good brand and they've scaled back on their quality. And so don't be fooled. They're kind of riding on their old reputation. So this is a great resource if you're looking to make maybe a one-time purchase, like a new pair of boots or a coat or an appliance. This is the website for you. The other one is just the old workhorse Consumer Reports, right? And part of what they measure, if you haven't dipped into Consumer Reports in a while, is they give a reliability score, a repair frequency, other metrics, or just owner satisfaction, which I think is another way to look at those. So you know, it's a great place to find out what are quality, durable goods. And this also dovetails this graphic that I pulled, which was the most reliable electrical appliances, because I've been in the Buy It for Life Reddit page. And whenever people talk about appliances, they reference Speed Queen. I've never heard of Speed Queen, but Consumer Reports confirms that that is the most you know, and kind of by a bit. And then some of the ones that we're all familiar with that you see at Lowe's, the Maytag and the Whirlpool are closer to the bottom, but they're the ones that you have endless options. So, you know, the next time I have to get an appliance, I'm gonna figure out where and how to get a Speed Queen, because they apparently are not just really reliable, but also repairable. You know, pretty easy to repair. The other one, and I've got some of my Time Bank Repair Cafe friends here today, is resist throwaway culture, right? If you can, get your stuff repaired. You can do it through the Time Bank, you know, the Repair Cafe, but there's also like, I feel personally sad that we've lost an appliance repair company here in town. I just think that the planned obsolescence of appliances, they're hard to repair and they're cheap to replace. And if anybody remembers Major Home Appliance, they were fantastic. They're gone. I just don't think they could stay in business because people would just say it's cheaper to just get a new appliance rather than repair it. So if you know of someone who fixes stuff, give them their business, because we want people in our community who can do repairs, who can do mending and tailoring and fix sewing machines. Or if you just want a scrappy team of like people with can-do attitudes who kind of know what they're doing, come to the Repair Cafe. We have those in the spring and the fall. We partner with the Habitat for Humanity Restore. This is our buddy Josh. He does the tool and knife sharpening station. Here's Ellen at the sewing and mending. We usually have a bank. Judy joins us of like 6-ish people with sewing machines, and we'll try to fix whatever you bring us. It doesn't matter how obviously trash it is. We will work on it. And then lastly, you know, you can engage your decision makers for systemic change. You know, there's in Europe, there are things called extended producer responsibility laws
changed me
where
to
if
driving,
you
you know,
manufacture
when I
something,
wanted to go
you're
to those
responsible
places.
for it over its life cycle, including disposal, and that has to be built into the price. I don't see a lot of hope for that happening at the federal level in the short term. But I think we can engage our state lawmakers on right to repair laws. I think particularly when big states like California, and just manufacturing things that aren't molded plastic that you can't get into the bits of. That's part of the planned obsolescence, is there's no functional way for us to repair things anymore. Even like a box fan. I
But
had
you know,
a box
Bologna is
fan
supposed to be so
that
great. It's
you
supposed to
couldn't
have
take
like the
apart.
best food in Italy. They
There was
say,
no
and
screws. It was
also
all just molded together. And so if
we
it
could do
busted,
this. I'm not
that's
sure if
it,
they
right?
charge you though to come into
So I'll close with
Venice
that
Airport, you know,
and then
'cause, you
open
know,
it up for
Venice is charging all
questions,
these
but
tourist fees now.
thank you all. I
I don't know if,
appreciate you.
you know,
Let me know what questions you might
paying
have.
extra just to go there. But then you can go, this is a good option. This would be this, where's Milan? It's up here. No. Anyway, this is harder apparently than Milan's like here. But this is an option, and then here you take some kind of, they do transit for this one. Venice, and then you go down here. You see, you don't even go all the way to Rome then. This is the port
Mhm.
here. So it's not worth going into Rome if you're gonna do other areas of Italy,
The
you know.
clamshells, the jars and other things, and we recently, where's that wish site? Does the town of Blacksburg or the people who process our recycling, do they?
You know, that, first of all, thank you for raising the issue of wish cycling. Has anybody heard this term? Okay, so wish cycling is when you look on the bottom and you see the chasing arrows and you're like, that's fine. Or like people are like, well, this has got metal in it. This is probably recyclable in some way, and it's something that's going to completely jam up the system. And this idea that the transfer station is just going to figure it out, you do more harm than good. So if you're not sure, don't just put it in the trash, because you can contaminate entire loads, you can damage equipment, and the transfer station operates on like razor thin economic margins. So you're kind of doing a lot more harm than good. But to your specific question, I actually wish I had a better answer, because it's something where I feel like I've asked the question, it's been answered, and I still remain somewhat confused. So I don't actually oversee the solid waste and recycling. There's a woman named Morgan Schock, and she manages that for the town. I'm happy to get your contact information, but for anybody else who's interested, you can reach out to Morgan directly. And do you know, I mean, I know the ones and twos, the bottles are, but the, like the produce clamshells. That's the thing. I've heard both things and I from people who are in a position to know. And so if, let's put it this way, if me, the sustainability manager of the town, can't keep it straight, what hope do any of us have, right? Right. Right. Yeah.
They're consolidated everything, and where it used to be, almost all the students here are now.
Right.
Those live in bottom.
Yeah. I mean, I think the answer is, which is good, but if they're not recycled, yeah. Yeah.
We had a talk last year, I think it was, by Teresa Sweeney. And I know that she said that in general, it's for the bottles. You know, hey, like drinking containers or whatever.
Except for one thing that, it seemed to me, because she now works for Vermillion Tech, not the county, that she was very adamant about 1 or 2 plastics only being bottles, and that's the reason that their bins on campus say bottles, you know, they have the holes for them. It seems to me that she thought that the town would still take those pledges.
I think they have told me that. Yes.
And so, right, it's, who knows?
So, I mean, so one, we're not going to figure out the answer here today. I can get the answer, but maybe the larger point is avoid them if you can. You know, I mean, because it is so confusing. And I think also it's confusing because that particular policy of what is accepted is shifting. And so as everyday folks trying to do the right thing, you know, you have an idea in your head of what it used to be 1 through 7 was accepted, right? And so people are still, that's been gone for, I mean, almost 10 years. And people are like, oh yeah, you can recycle 1 through 7. So like, it's, for me, the solution is reduce the amount of things you have to make a hard decision about, if you can. I mean, yeah. 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 Yeah, it's really hard. Yeah. So so if you see something that's inaccurate, please let me or Morgan know because, you know, websites, yeah. So the gentleman in the back had a question and then you, Rosemary. Yes, sir. Say that you're going to speak up a little bit. Yeah. Yeah.
It's a cartridge. $20.
Mm-hmm.
Now you can't even get into folks. Gotta replace the whole thing.
Are you serious? I just replaced mine because I had a dripping faucet and they did have the O-rings, but they sold them in a 6-pack. And I'm like, why do I need 6? Like, that's a crazy thing to sell in a 6-pack. And I similarly, I had a pair of overalls that I got at the thrift store, but one of the buckles was busted. So I was really proud of myself. I went on the website and I found replacement buckles. They came in a 12-pack. And I'm like, how many times am I going to repair overalls in my life? Like you only can buy it okay, so, but yes, to your point, it is crazy that even when you can and want to do repairs, you are forced into a higher consuming version of that. Yeah. Yes.
I'm
Oh, like alcohol? Okay, I'm gonna repeat that comment for the folks at home. Real men drink draft beer. Real men and women of drinking age drink draft beer. Well, you can, if you are a person who drinks alcohol, I will also offer a zero waste option is to get a growler and go to one of our many local breweries, support them, get some beer. You got to drink it fast enough so it doesn't go totally flat. So that's your choice, and I'm not judging. They do have like kind of like little mini growlers. But yeah, so sorry, Judy. Rosemary was next. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. 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 Right.
So, we recycle anything. Too.
Mm-hmm.
Second thing is, you didn't mention the packaging for taking out the people who in restaurants.
Right.
And they take out all this food.
Right.
That packaging is just impossible.
Right.
And it's not recyclable.
Right.
And there are some that they say are recyclable, but they really, and they go in the landfill. But the problem with that is produces methane.
Right.
So, I mean, everything's taking out containers, it's just eliminate.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, ask restaurants to get should if you can, or something, but I mean, every time I eat out, I see it container.
Right. Take your own container. They will let you, if you bring your own, you can't give it to them for the health department. Other than weirdly coffee is fine, but you can't like go to a place that's like a buffet and say, fill up my home container, but your leftovers at your table, well, they don't do it. You have to put it in, right? And contamination into their space. You can do whatever. And if there is, I was going to mention that. I'm going to let Judy go first, but I'm going to mention that state law. Go ahead, Judy. Yeah.
Buckles.
Remember at the repair cafe, I said, I have 11 buckles. Oh, yeah. Yes. So I hate to cut the conversation short, but Lynn has an announcement. But can I just briefly mention the new state law as it relates to packaging? So in 2021, the Virginia General Assembly passed a law that was going to phase out styrofoam for food vendors. It went into effect July 1 of this year for food vendors of 20 locations or more in the state. So that's going to be your chain restaurants, your Kroger, your Food Lion, those sorts of things. And then next year, all food vendors. So that's every little mom and pop restaurant, food truck. It also involves the schools. And so styrofoam will be phased out. But as Rosemary noted, that's great. And styrofoam is particularly egregiously terrible as a packaging for lots of reasons, but the other solutions aren't perfect. And even the compostables, those are challenging because they often have like a plastic or a plasticized paper lining, and people are putting those in their home compost, and it's adding to more microplastics in the soil. So it's a really thorny problem. So to the degree possible, bring your own, you know, bring your own container for takeout. Yeah. Yeah, they can't. All right, so who has announcements? Either you or Lynn. Okay, Lynn, you're up. Lynn, you might need.
Yeah, come, I don't know if you have to have the mic, but at least come for the people online.
Here, just hold the mic. We're tethered together.
Oh, I'm way down there. I'm so short.
Hold it up to your actual, yeah, there you go.
So I work with the New River Valley Master Gardeners, and we have a booth at the Blacksburg Farmers Market every Saturday, 8 to 2. If you frequented the farmers market, hopefully you've seen us out there. We give out gardening information, seeds, soil test kits, that kind of stuff. But our main purpose is a mission called Share the Spare, where we're trying to collect extra produce that people might want to shop for and buy while they're at the market. It's amazing at the end of the day how generous the farmers are. We take it to several locations in the area. One is an outdoor refrigerator that the Wesley Foundation supports. One is Interfaith Food Pantry, Agape, McKeep. We support them all. So if you, this time of year, have excess produce in your backyard, we'll be glad to take it off your hands if you'd want to drop it by the market on a Saturday. Also, if you know people that have fruit trees, that the fruit is just falling to the ground and collecting bees and doing no good, please let us know, and we'll either get a team or tap into the New River Valley Glean team and help make sure this food isn't getting wasted. You know, if it's an apple, we need to get used to produce not looking perfect and not always expecting it to be that way. So we're just working hard to make sure food isn't getting wasted and it's getting to the tables of the people that would so appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you. Wait, hold on. Thanks. All right.
Thanks.
Here, I can take this off.
So I actually have a couple of other things. We are also working with Share the Spare. We've been getting reusable shopping bags back into circulation because many of us have many more than we need. And so Share the Spare graciously lets us pass some of them on and then passes them on to people who aren't already overloaded with them. So that's one thing. Another, talking about composting, we don't have the demographics for curbside composting, and that's one of the biggest questions that we get asked. We used to refer people to an international program called Share Waste, and that disbanded at the end of last year. But we are just getting ready to announce that a local engineer that we've been kind of working with has developed a system called Compost Share. And so that will be going out in our email list. If you're not on our email list, you can sign up over on the table there. So basically, it's somebody who, like me, who has a composter is willing to let somebody else who can't compost drop off their compostable waste to them. So I've been doing that for a number of years now, and my only issue is I don't have enough leaves for all the other waste that I get. So I'm constantly trying to do that. And some of the paper takeout containers are compostable. One last thing is that I also manage a resource center for teachers called the New River Creative Reuse Center. And we collect things that might otherwise go to waste and give them away to teachers. So I have some sheets here about that if you're interested. But I also, something that came in a while back to the reuse center made me think of Carol. And last night I realized that like this was, I didn't know what I was going to do with these things, but I realized this is the perfect opportunity to bring these out because this says, this is all the garbage I made. So I don't know how long it would take Carol to fill one of these up, but there are actually a number of them. I don't know, 6 or 7 or so. So if anybody else has been doing like zero waste and wants to have a challenge, in fact, if you did this and let us know about it, we have some zero waste gifts we've been sort of putting together. So anyway, have one of these for Carol. Okay, thank you, everybody, and we hope to see you at our program next month.
Amazing. Lovely to see you. I know. We might have put this in my fridge.